If you leave your Bible on stage, you'll never forget it. I recommend that the gain or something on this be turned down before I start yelling, because that's going to be unpleasant for everyone. Sound guy things. We've been doing a series for a very, very long time by our standards on the names of God. Does anyone remember the point of that series? I heard to learn more about who God is. Because when we learn more about who God is, then we learn more about the faith that we practice. Right? That's the theory. Anyways, the first name that we studied was the name Yahweh, which some of you might have heard before. It's a fairly commonly used one, often called the holy name of God. And when we studied that story, we realized that the truth about our faith, that the name Yahweh speaks to us, is that there is only one God. The God who is, as opposed to all the other gods who are not. We studied another name, a variation on that, Yahweh Shalom, the Lord is peace. And we discovered from studying that story that we can be confident that God will bring peace and completeness and wholeness into our lives, that God understands the functions that we are supposed to fulfill in His creation, and that all the little times that He has shown up throughout each of our lives is proof that He is guiding us along a path, if only we are willing, to fulfill the roles that He has made us to fulfill. There's been a number of names that we've gone through, and I'm not going to spend the time going through all of them right now. Today we're going through another one, Yahweh Nissi. The Lord is our banner. Before we get into the text, which will be Exodus 17, in case you want to flip there, if you're following along in your own Bibles, we'll also have it on the screen. But Exodus 17, starting in verse 8. Before we get into the text, though, I want to tell you about one of my favorite sayings. Okay, you ready for this? There's a saying, the way that most people say it is that the hill you want to die on? You ever heard that before? You ever heard that? Is that the hill you want to die on? It's usually said a little bit sarcastically. When someone's getting really upset about something that's not that serious, they say, is that the hill that you want to die on? And the idea that's being communicated, right, it's an image of someone making a last stand in a battle. They're holding the hill and they know there's no way out. Is that the hill that you want to die on? The question meaning, is that really as serious as you're making it out to be? Is this really the issue you want to stake it all on? Do you really want to fight about that topic out of all the things you could be fighting about? But I don't normally say it that way because I don't normally address it at other people. I address it at me. And it's not a question, it's a statement. I say, this is my hill and I will die on it. Now, sometimes it's something serious, but more often than not, it's, well, not. This upcoming week, I'm going to be up in Moberly, Missouri. If you don't know where that is, congratulations. No one else does either. But it's where my college is. I'll be going there for my last in-person class in my MA, which will be a lot of fun and all that. When I'm there on a Sunday, which unfortunately this time I won't be, I go to church with some friends of mine that I met at said college. And last time I was there, I was walking around looking at how they do their greeting stuff and how they do their coffee area, and listening to the preacher and kind of watching what he does. What does he do before the service? What does he do after the service? Because once a preacher, always a preacher. You can't not pay attention to those things. And I lean over to my friend Joe, went to the same school that I did. He knows a lot about how churches work. He's working for a school district right now, not in a church, but he's been in the church his whole life. And he's noticing kind of the same things as me, but he attends that church, so he's kind of used to their rhythms. And I start pointing out little things that I don't like. Yeah. So I start pointing out little things that I don't like and say, why are the greeters staying there when they should be over by the door? Well, why is the person at the coffee area, like they're there like they're supposed to be like friendly with people, but they're sitting on their phone? Well, why does the preacher have 3 bodyguards following him around? I'm not joking. Dude looked like he had the Secret Service following him around. It was amazing. It's like, why does your preacher have bodyguards, man? What's up with that? And they had walkie-talkies and everything. It was a little terrifying, but it was kind of cool. I started pointing out little things. I'm like, why do they do it? Why do they do it? And Joe leans over, my friend Joe, he leans over to me and he goes, Jason, not everyone has to do things the way that you do. I said, Joe, this is my hill, and I will die on it. That was our topic of discussion at lunch as well. And even less serious things than that. I'm kind of a sports nut, at least for Cleveland teams, particularly basketball and football. There's this terrific Cleveland Cavaliers point guard. His name is Darius Garland. Big fan, a lot of fun to watch him. And coming up on this weekend, this is the All-Star game. For those of you that are basketball nerds, you already know that. If you don't follow basketball. It's basically where a bunch of people vote to say, like, who's the most fun and exciting and good players in the league. We're going to throw them together and watch them play a game that they don't care about, right? Lots of fun, lots of fun. And I was convinced, I was like, Darius Garland needs to be in the All-Star game, and I'm ranting to Maggie about it. Maggie doesn't even watch basketball. She's like, okay, Jason, yeah, whatever you have to say. And I'm just ranting, and I'm working myself up. I'm like, this guy deserves to be in the game. He's worked so hard. He's such a good player, and he plays for my favorite team. And then I just say, this is my hill, and I will die on it. It doesn't matter. It does not affect the quality of my life whatsoever if he makes it in the All-Star game or not. He didn't. He did, though. He did. And he deserved it, and I'm happy about it. But it didn't affect the quality of my life in the slightest. If he didn't make the game, how is my life going to change? It doesn't. Not at all. See, there's a truth about people, especially people like me, they're just a little bit combative, that we like to be passionate about things, and we like to stand up for things, and we like to fight for things, whether they matter or not. And especially when things matter. We want to stake our claim. We want to find our hill. We want to die on that hill. If you don't believe me, get on Facebook around an election. Yeah, that's when I deleted the Facebook app off of my phone. We want to stake our claim and say, this is what I stand for, this is what I believe in, this is my hill, and I am going to die on it. But Exodus 17 has an interesting take. You see, Exodus 17, we're going to read the story of a battle between the Israelites and the Amalekites. And yeah, the Israelites had to fight physically, actually fight with swords and shields and axes and bows. But Exodus 17 doesn't credit the victory to them. It credits the victory to Yahweh Nissi, the Lord who is our banner. Let's go ahead and read the story. Again, Exodus chapter 17, beginning in verse 8. The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. And Moses said to Joshua, choose some of our men to go out and fight the Amalekites, and tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands. Now, there's a passage in Deuteronomy that talks about this same battle. And it mentions some details that aren't mentioned here, so let's fill in the gaps. The Amalekites were a small herding people that lived in the Sinai Peninsula, which is mostly desert. And there's only a handful of oases along the route that the Israelites were traveling. And these Amalekites see these Israelites getting really close to one of their oases, and they go, that's going to be a problem. Because there's a few thousand of us, maybe only a few hundred, actually. And we have all of our sheep, and we have to feed our kids and our spouses, and we have to take care of our people. And there's like thousands of them, and all their donkeys and their camels and their whatever they have with them. And there's not enough food and there's not enough water to go around. So we have to protect our home. That seems reasonable, doesn't it? It seems reasonable to me. The Amalekites see this huge, by the way, heavily armed group of Israelites coming towards one of their oases that are very valuable. They cannot live without these watering holes. And they go, if we let those people take our watering hole, we are going to starve to death. So they attack. And in Deuteronomy, we're told that they don't just attack directly, they actually attack the stragglers on the edges. Any of you guys go hiking ever? No, not a very popular pastime around here. There we go, Steph. This is why Steph and I are friends, okay? Well, if you were to go hiking and you were to take your family with you, you'll find something very quickly. Those of you that are used to hiking will get way out in front if you aren't paying attention. You're walking faster than everyone else, and you don't need as many breaks. And the people that are less used to it, that are not as good a shape, or that are older, will start lagging behind. Larry, I love you to death, but if we went hiking together, I would smoke you, man. The old and the sick and the young are the ones that are straggling at the back. When the Amalekites come to attack, who are they killing? The old, the sick, the young. That's a little gross, isn't it? It's the reality of ancient life and ancient warfare, unfortunately. So they're attacking at the back, and obviously the Israelites are not very happy about this because people they very highly value, members of their community, their own children, their own grandparents, they're being attacked, and some of them are dying. And so Moses, the leader of the people, turns to his protege Joshua, who is one of their military leaders. He's a tribal leader from the tribe of Ephraim. And he turns to him and he says, take some of our men and go and deal with this issue. And he turns, brings some fighting men with him, and attacks the Amalekites. So it seems up to this point that the Israelites have a problem and they're going to solve it. There is a conflict. There's something they need to take a stand on. They're either going to run away or they're going to allow their old and their young to be attacked, or they're going to stand and fight. They're going to pick a hill and they're going to die on it, or someone will anyways. But Moses says something interesting. He says, "Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill." There's apparently a hill near this location, "with the staff of God in my hands." We'll see in a moment that he's going to raise his hands towards heaven. And this is probably a statement basically saying, I'm going to go up on this hill and pray. It was common practice in the ancient world to take a certain position, and many actually Christian denominations today will do the same thing. You take a certain position when you pray. Many of us, we close our eyes and we bow our heads, right? We clasp our hands together. Some people, they open up their hands like this as though they're receiving something from the heavens, so they'll put their hands open. Some people look up and put their arms out. Some people get down on their knees. And this is a common practice amongst Jews. So when Moses says, I'm going to go and I'm going to have the staff of God in my hands, we read in a moment that he's going to raise his hands towards the heavens. It's probably a position of prayer. He's saying, you go and you battle, but I'm going to go up to that hill and I'm going to pray. Let's read on. Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses ordered, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. Aaron is Moses' brother, and Hur is honestly someone we don't know very much about. He's a leader of the Israelites, and we really don't know a whole lot besides that. He's only mentioned twice in Scripture. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning, but whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. Translation, whenever Moses was praying fervently with his hands to God, Israel was winning, but when he lowered his hands, they were losing. When God was in the fight, they were winning. And when they stopped relying on him, they were losing. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him for him to sit on, and Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side and one on the other, so that his hands remained steady until sunset, and so Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. The Israelites kind of had to do something, and honestly, it's hard to blame the Amalekites. I mean, they thought that their way of life was being threatened. Now, if you read the passage before this, it's interesting because they're next to an oasis from the location information we have, if you know the region. They're next to an oasis, but the people of Israel are complaining to Moses in the passage before this that they don't have any water. There's a pond right there, and they're complaining they don't have any water. Why would that be? The pond over there belongs to the Amalekites, and they aren't going to steal from them. So they turn to Moses and say, there's an oasis right there, man. Why can't we go and take some water? Moses says, don't worry about it. God's going to handle it. And he brings water forth from a rock. There's a little bit more to that story than that, but that's the gist of it. And so the Amalekites are terrified of Israel because they're scared. They're going to come. They're going to take our oasis. They're going to take away our way of life. They're threatening us. But in reality, Israel wasn't threatening them at all. In fact, they were asking God for miracles so that they would not go and have to steal water and foraging land and whatnot from the Amalekites. They posed no threat to the Amalekites at all. In fact, they were going out of their way to not pose a threat to the Amalekites. The Amalekites were terrified, and they attacked God's people anyways. I don't know about you, but I see some parallels. Israel today is no longer God's people as they were in the ancient world. I know it's a loaded statement for some of us, but bear with me. God's people is the church. Not this church in particular, although I hope that we're part of it, but the church, the universal church, the Methodists and the Church of Christ and the Christian churches and the Baptists and the whatever denomination you want to fit in there. Those that profess the name of Christ, they are the church. They are God's people. And today, I don't know a whole lot of locations, at least not in our country, where we're coming under physical attack, but we're certainly coming under a kind of attack, at least from certain corners. And frequently, the people who attack the church, the people who insult the church, the people who attempt to drive the church out of the public sphere are scared. Last time that I was driving a long distance, I was going to Virginia. And as I was driving somewhere in Tennessee, I think we saw that billboard. We saw a billboard from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, which, first of all, kudos for branding. It's a cute little pun they have there. Instead of freedom of religion, freedom from religion. You see what they did there? We see a billboard from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and I believe it said something to the effect of, there is no afterlife, get used to it. Wow, that's nice. That's cheery thoughts while I'm driving. The Freedom from Religion Foundation, if all they did was put up billboards, then I'd be like, all right, whatever, good for you, bud, good use of money. not worried about it. But they actually are pretty active legally. Did you know that? They have a really big hand in trying to push religion of all sorts, but especially Christianity, out of the public sphere. Why would people do that? Because they're scared. Because they think that people like us pose a threat to their ways of life. That we are going to force our beliefs on them, and we're going to proselytize to their children. God forbid that we tell their kids about Jesus. They're scared. And now we know, those of us who have been in the church, that the vast majority of churches, the vast majority of local congregations don't want to harm anyone in their community. We want to help. We want to love. And yes, we want people to know about Jesus. We want to do it the right way. We're not like going door to door with a knife, like follow Jesus or else. We want to love people into the church. And if they reject the church, we're going to be sad about it. We're not going to make them do anything. We are not a threat to them. We don't want to be a threat. Just like the Israelites had no desire to be a threat to the Amalekites. But like the Amalekites, some in our society become scared and they begin lashing out legally or online or in private conversations. People begin lashing out at the church, pushing back, fighting against, attacking at the rear, as it were. And when that happens, if you're anything like me, then you want to dig in, pick your hill, and you want to die on it. You want to start fighting that battle, not just you want to fight that battle, but you want to win that battle. You want to prove to people that the church is the best thing that has ever happened in the world. And you want to prove to people that Jesus is the God that they should follow. And you want to prove to people, you want to fight back, you want to push back. But in this story, when Israel is attacked wrongly, and yes, they turn and they have to push back, and they have to fight, and they have to put in the effort, they have to battle. Who's the one who's actually winning the battle? Because they have the same number of men when Moses' hands are in the air and when they aren't. They have the same military advantage whether Moses is praying or not. But when Moses is praying and God is engaged in the battle, Israel is winning. And when God is not engaged, Israel is losing. And I believe that bears a lesson for the church. That when people attack the church, when people attack us, it's not us that wins the battle. Lord. The most potent weapon we have is not swords or words or blog posts. The most potent weapon we have is prayer. And that if we intend to engage our enemies under our own strength like Israel, we will lose. But if we engage or if we engage the enemies of God with God at our backs, we'll win. Moses understood this, and that's why from the very beginning he says, tomorrow while you battle, I will go and I will pray for you. And Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword in the same way the church can overcome her enemies as well. Not with a sword, with love, kindness, generosity, the ability to turn the other cheek. When necessary, with debate and logic, we can overcome our enemies, but only with God's power behind us. In verse 14, we get a summary at the end of the story. The Lord said to Moses, write on a scroll as something to be remembered. Write this on a scroll as something to be remembered. And make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven. This is a promise. And a promise we actually see fulfilled under the reign of King Saul. That these people that have attacked God's people, that they will not last forever. That ultimately they will come to judgment. That ultimately they will be defeated. That ultimately those that oppose the will of God will not be able to stand forever. He will blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven. And Moses built an altar and called it Yahweh Nissi, the Lord is my banner. And he said, because my hands were lifted up to the throne of the Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. Moses teaches us a pretty important lesson here. That when the people of God are attacked physically, as the Israelites were, or in our day with words and lawsuits and public disposition, that we do not win battles on our own. We win battles with the power of the Lord, our banner, behind us. That prayer is the most important weapon we could possibly bring to bear against those that would try to push us out of their communities out of their societies, out of the lives of their families and friends. If the church wants to win back ground that we have lost over the last several generations, how do we do that? Not with clever preachers, not with cute blog posts and amazing YouTube videos. There's a place for those kinds of things. But we win back ground. We win back hearts and minds and souls. The power of the Lord our banner. The power of prayer. I'm someone who likes to choose a hill and die on it, and there's a place for that in Christianity, but don't pretend that you're taking the hill by yourself. If you are, you're not going to win. That's the lesson that Moses has for us, the story of him and Joshua's battle with the Amalekites. Today, no matter what enemies the church faces, our local church or the universal church, be sure that sooner or later they will lose. And if you want to be on the winning side, make sure God's backing you. Let's pray. Lord, it is easy in the climate of today to feel like there is no one on our side. First of all, Lord, I'd ask that you help us remember that you are on our side. And as the song goes, if our God is for us, who can stand against? God, also help us remember that there are hundreds, thousands, millions, billions of other believers out there. Those that have gone before and those that will come after, and those that are standing shoulder to shoulder with us today, all across this county, state, this country, and across the world. That we are not alone, but we are one small part of your body, the church. And that anyone that should come to attack your people like the Amalekites did so many centuries ago, that sooner or later they will be defeated. That your church and our God will stand victorious. Lord, thank you for this reminder and this encouragement. Thank you for being our banner that we rally around and the power behind our victories. Help us to give you the appropriate glory, the glory that you deserve. In Jesus' name.